The day Karen's teenage son broke into my garage was the day I realized just how far the HOA madness in our neighborhood could go. And believe me, as a federal investigator who's spent years dealing with criminals, liars, and people who think they're smarter than the law, I thought I had seen everything. But nothing prepared me for the circus that unfolded right on my driveway. It all began on a Thursday evening when I got home late after a long debriefing session in D.C., exhausted and ready to collapse. I pulled into my driveway and immediately noticed something off my garage door was slightly open. Not fully, not accidentally, but just enough to make every instinct inside me tense up. When I stepped out of my SUV and walked closer, I saw him, Karen's golden child, 16-year-old Tyler, standing inside my garage like he owned the place. He was holding my power drill in one hand, my socket set on the floor beside him, and a smug expression that made my blood boil instantly. This kid already had a history in the neighborhood, stealing Wi-Fi signals, tearing up flower beds with his dirt bike, and spray painting the community mailbox because he was bored, but breaking into a federal investigator's garage. That was a new level of stupid. I kept my voice calm. It's the same tone I use when questioning suspects who think smiling will get them out of trouble. "Put it down," I said. He jumped, but didn't look guilty, just annoyed. "I'm just borrowing tools," he snapped. "My mom said you wouldn't mind." That sentence alone told me everything I needed to know. Karen, our infamous HOA tyrant, had been on a power trip for months, complaining about my truck being too tall, sending me violation letters because my trash bin was an inch too close to the curb, and once even threatening to tow my mailbox because it didn't match her preferred community aesthetic. If she told her son he could just take whatever he wanted from my property, she had officially crossed a new line. I stepped deeper into the garage, blocking the exit. "Did you break the lock?" I asked, pointing to the latch I had installed after a string of petty thefts in the neighborhood. The kid swallowed hard. "It was, loose translation. He broke it with a screwdriver." I pulled out my phone and took pictures of everything. The broken lock, the tools in his hands, the angle of the garage door. Not because I needed documentation for court, but because people like Karen only understand proof. If I told her what her son did, she'd twist the whole story. Claim I invited him in. Convince herself I was the problem. Typical HOA Karen logic. Tyler tried to push past me, mumbling something about his group project needing a drill. I stopped him just by giving him the look, the one I've perfected from years of interrogations. He froze. "Go home," I said, "and tell your mother I'll be over in 10 minutes. His eyes widened. Even he was scared of that idea. He sprinted across the street like he was running from the FBI, which, technically, he kinda was. When I knocked on Karen's door, she flung it open dramatically, arms folded, chin up, ready for war, like she always was. "What now?" She snapped before I could speak. I held up the pictures. Her face drained of color, but only for a second. Then she launched into her usual defense mode. "My son was borrowing tools. That garage isn't even secure. Anyone could walk in." That last part made me laugh, which made her angrier. "You encouraged your son to break into private property," I said calmly. "That's a federal offense if you want to get technical." Her eyes went wide. "You wouldn't dare," she whispered. "It was a misunderstanding." I leaned in slightly. "Your son is lucky I came home when I did. If my surveillance alarm had gone off, he would have triggered a response team before he even grabbed that drill." That wasn't entirely true, but she didn't know that Karen deflated like a balloon. She called Tyler downstairs and made him apologize. Not a real apology, more like a muttered sorry through clenched teeth. But I didn't care about the words. What mattered was Karen's reaction. For once, she looked genuinely scared, not of me, but of consequences. Real consequences. The kind that didn't involve HOA committees or petty fines. I told her I wouldn't press charges if she agreed to keep her son away from my property and stop harassing me with made-up HOA violations. She nodded quickly, her pride clearly hurting more than anything else. And just like that, the queen of the HOA had no choice but to back down. The next morning, I installed 2 new cameras, reinforced the locks, and added motion sensors throughout my garage. Not because I was afraid, but because people like Karen never truly learn their lesson. And sure enough, later that afternoon she walked by slowly, pretending to water her grass while staring at my new security setup. I didn't even look up. I just smiled, because sometimes the best way to stop an HOA Karen is to remind her that the person she's messing with knows the law better than she does and isn't afraid to use it.